And we are live on Facebook. Welcome, everyone, to another New Jersey Constitutional Republicans virtual conversation. It's my honor once again to have Republican LD4 State Senator candidate, Mr. Steve Pakradooni, here with me again tonight. Thank you for joining me again, Steve.
Thank you very much, JR. I appreciate it. It's deja vu all over again. It's funny. We got interrupted by the storms, the severe storms we had last week, and I want to send all my best wishes and prayers out to some of the members of our community that were affected by them. I was very, very close to tornado. Actually, a family that my son goes to school with and plays football with at high school. Their home was damaged. Thank God they're okay. Their neighborhood took a pretty good hit, and we've been trying to help them the best we can get through this horrible time in their life, but they'll rebuild and we'll get moving again. And I just want to say one thing about the failure of Governor Murphy to alert us of this storm. I was listening to his COVID press conference earlier in the day. I think it was at 10 a.m. And he mentioned about a minute and a half of the storm and didn't say anything about the severe weather. He said, be prepared for torrential downpours and excessive rains and some flooding, which we did. We did prepare ourselves for that. Had no idea what was coming with those tornadoes and the severity of the storm. Even though Governor Wolf, 2 miles away from my house or 5 miles away from my house, declared a state of emergency at 10 o'clock in the morning. Governor Murphy didn't do that till 10 o'clock at night. So just want to point out that failure, JR, and I appreciate you having me on.
Very good. And as we're talking about Phil Murphy's failures, Pack, and I like to call Steve Pack. That's his nickname. It's a great nickname. Of course, Pakradooni. Now, Steve, before we get started, where is your ancestry from? What's Pakradooni? That's an interesting last name.
So actually, it's Armenian. It's supposed to be Pakradoonian. So
Okay.
on my father's side,
Sure.
whoever. I think we dated it back to about 1903, or they were also, fleeing the Armenian genocide and some other things.
Yes.
I don't know the exact date for that, but it was Pakradoonian, and whoever came over first had a very long first name, also, from what I was told, so it didn't fit on the line, so they shortened it to Pakradooni. Which worked very well for me growing up in South Philadelphia. Now, my mom is all Italian. Her maiden name is Campana. But in South Philly, having that I on the end of my name really helped me out. But the true Italians knew that my last name was not an Italian last name because there's a K in it, and there's no K in Italian names. So it worked out well for me. But basically, it's an Italian, Armenian, and 18% Jewish too, believe it or not. It's pretty interesting when I started doing my background, and I love culture, and I love all cultures, and I really got very interested in everything of different cultures, my own, and of course everyone else's too. I love celebrating everyone else's holidays and customs, and I'll invite myself to any Seder dinner or any other holiday dinner I can get myself invited to. That's for sure.
That's great, Pac. And of course, your ancestry was very, very fortunate in getting out of Armenia at that time with the horrible genocide that occurred and terrible injustice. At that time, President Theodore Roosevelt made profound remarks about helping the Armenians in that terrible persecution that they went through. So thank God that your progenitors were able to get over to America, and that your family's been able to enjoy, as well as all those who've escaped persecution and injustices throughout the world, to be able to come to this land of liberty.
Yes, and I do hold that near and dear to my heart. I never lose sight of that, also of the freedoms that they came here for. And it's amazing how I see people just take that for granted, vote it away. With the wrong people. And I
Mhm.
really, really take that very seriously to that we keep our rights and freedoms. And actually, sometimes I even say that unfortunately, with that freedom comes great responsibility. And a lot of people, American citizens, for some reason, can't handle that responsibility of freedom. And they make some
Mm.
choices in their representatives in government, and that's another reason why I've gotten involved, in government and on the state level, because I just keep saying it over and over: we are not being represented correctly.
That's right, Pac. And one of the most egregious examples of poor representation from the governor on down to the legislature from the Democratic Party, with the mishandling, the suspension of constitutional rights regarding the lockdowns. Now, there is no significant scientific data that proves that the lockdowns did anything in curbing the number of fatalities. We know that the average death of the COVID-19 pandemic are people who are in their 80s with pre-existing conditions. And yet Phil Murphy ordered people who were already infected with COVID into convalescent centers, which also led to the spread of more death. This was all an example of terrible management, mismanagement, thinking that this epidemic was going to lead to a shortage of hospital beds throughout the state, which never occurred. There was never any doubt that we had enough beds and enough resources in hospitals to combat this disease. And it was a terrible mistake. And we lost lives as a result of a horrible decision made by Phil Murphy. And he must be held accountable, as well as all of the Democrats that sat back and acquiesced and said, oh, yes, we need to shut everything down. We need to shut the economy. We have no problem sending these people into these convalescent centers who are already infected. That's why it's so important for you to replace the Democratic senator in LD4 on November the 2nd.
Oh yeah, that is true. They gave so much power to the governor, and were in lockstep. I couldn't imagine. They're shutting down. They're shutting down churches. They were arresting pastors who were having church services out in a parking lot, in a field. They left the liquor stores open. They left the abortion clinics open. They left, you can go to any box store and buy what you needed and play the lottery. But if you wanted to worship, and I'm going to go back to the state constitution, because in Article 1 on the paragraph 3, this one hit me pretty hard when I read this. There's one, it says, no person shall be deprived of the inestimable, in other words, too valuable to put a price on,
Mhm.
privilege of
That's
worship
right.
Almighty God in the manner agreeable to that dictates their own conscience. Some people feel the need to go to church and worship with others. Now, we
Right.
understand that there was a pandemic. We understand that there
So,
was a virus out there that spread, but Governor Murphy, actually pointing out these churches that wanted to have services, even if you stayed in your car in the parking lot of the church, that still was not acceptable. It just goes against our state constitution, another right we gave away. And I can't imagine our elected officials in Trenton not pushing back against the governor and saying, Governor, please, let's revisit this. Let's put some guidelines in. If they're in their cars, how are they spreading COVID? And it's unbelievable. Goes back to my original statement. We are not being represented correctly. It's time for change. We need to get rid of Phil Murphy. We need to get rid of the long-term incumbents in LD4, and let's give the government back to the people. That's my job.
that's right, Pac. And we have the responsibility, and this is what the New Jersey Constitution Republicans are involved in, educating the citizens on civics and what role they play as citizens in preserving their democratic constitutional republic. These egregious suspensions of constitutional rights. You just read a perfect example from the New Jersey Constitution that the people have the right of religious expression, and they were told that they could not do that. Now, the Constitution is the law. Everything is based upon law is founded on the Constitution. The word Constitution is very similar to the word statute. When we see the great Statue of Liberty out into the harbor outside of Manhattan in New York, we know that that is immovable. It's going to take a tremendous amount of force to move that. And that is the same word, that word statue is the same word that is called, or also similar to constitute or statuary, a statute, a constitution. These are all words that are similar together, and they are preeminent. There's no executive order. There's no legislation that even the assembly or the state senate, that's the state house in Trenton, is able to pass that would contradict what you just wrote, or what you just read rather, in the Constitution. And it's also, incidentally, the job of the state Supreme Court to support the Constitution and to make sure that the legislator and the executive are obeying the Constitution, which they also failed miserably in doing.
That is so true. So to give the power back to the people, and the people, their ultimate weapon. I know they're upset. I know they protest in the streets. They stand in front of the State House. I was in front of the State House protesting along with the mask mandates for our children, which I feel is child abuse to mask our children. And how our ultimate weapon is this November 2nd, the people have the opportunity to vote every single state government official out of office. Vote us in, vote new people in that abide by the Constitution and will give the people back their rights that this document gives them. It's very easy to look up. People should read it, even just read Article 1. And it's amazing how many people willingly gave up these rights and didn't fight back. And one of the other problems, too, that I didn't notice, it said that the people can congregate and ask for their representatives. Well, that right was taken away for us, too, because the state offices were closed. You couldn't talk to your representative. There was no answers there. That is just unimaginable to me. If I was the state representative, especially during times of a pandemic, somehow, some way, if someone needed to be getting in contact with my office, they wouldn't get a busy signal. They wouldn't get a message system that was full. I would be answering those calls and those emails whichever way possible. It's 2020, 2021. We have technology that's unbelievable. And their answer was, it's a pandemic. We are not taking calls. We are not going to work. We are not opening the offices. We could have done all of that. And it's just more of this document in front of me being trampled on, which is completely unacceptable, and exactly why we need the change in the state. November 2nd, people could come out, registered voters, get registered. You still have time to get registered if you're not. Please pull the lever for the challengers to the incumbents. We can change Trenton. We can make this happen.
And it's so refreshing, Pact, to hear you speak, to hear you reading, that you're reading the Constitution, because that gives you your job requirements. That's your that gives you the ability to be a legislator and to represent the people properly in defending their constitutional rights. And you're actually reading it and taking it seriously. And I call on all Republican representatives to follow Pac's example here. This is what we need. It's because we've had this gross and egregious stop, or this suspension of constitutional rights that the Democrats have perpetuated, led by Phil Murphy. And really what it was, Pac, it's very interesting that, of course, Franklin Delano Roosevelt is a tremendous mentor to the Democrats and to the progressives. And in his first inaugural, he said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." And that's exactly what they placated. And that's what exactly motivated them, was the fear to have to do something. And that something was to lock down the society, to deprive the people of their constitutional right of obtaining, possessing, and protecting their property, which is their money or their business, We know how many small businesses went under as a result of these unconstitutional lockdowns. And these people who are considering voting for Murphy again should understand that they have suspended, as you said, they have literally taken their constitutional rights and thrown them completely in the trash, because that's exactly what has been done with Phil Murphy, with these executive orders, locking down the society when it didn't need to be locked down. Of course, we've been talking to national figures about this, Pac, with Jeffrey Tucker and also John Tamney. And we've had a couple of videos with them describing how we cannot let this happen again. So when you get elected into Trenton, are you going to suggest that certain restrictions be put upon those who make these decisions based on fear that suspend the constitutional rights of the people of New Jersey?
Absolutely. And actually, Jack Ciattarelli himself wants to limit his power. I understand why the governor needs executive orders to act in a time where there's an emergency. He's the leader of the state. He has to be able to act and put an executive order into play. He said every 14 days, that executive order has to be brought in front of the Assembly and the Senate to make sure that that is the best for the residents. He is willing to limit his power that was just given actually by the Assembly and the Senate to Murphy. And it's interesting how that power that they gave him for these executive orders to continue and continue and continue ends in 4 years. So Murphy was thinking, well, if I get reelected, I will have this power to the end of my second term. That stops.
Terrible.
That's terrible. So when we vote the Democrats out, we put the Republicans in control. We haven't been in control of the State House in Trenton for close to 30 years now. Things have not gotten better in 30 years in Trenton. Limit the power of the government and put the power back into people's hands. I answer to the people. I don't answer to the governor, whether it be Jack or whoever, but I will not answer to the governor. I answer to the residents of LD4 and the state, as it should be. It's not what I want, it's what they want. That's why there'll be town halls. I promised from day one, when I said I'm going to run for state senate, and when I won the primary, I said I will be holding 2 town hall events every month, one in the Gloucester County portion of LD4 and one in the Camden County portion of LD4. Those town halls will be for residents to come and ask me questions and voice their concerns. It's a listening session for me, because that's what I need to take back to Trenton. That's the way our government was set up in New Jersey. We sent representatives to Trenton to represent the district correctly. That has not happened since I've lived in this district for almost 15 years now. I have never even met the representatives that we have in Trenton. I actually had to run against them in the assembly to meet them the first time. So in 2019. So that's just unreasonable. I know that they say, well, if you had a problem, you should come to the office. And I'm like, well, we do work during the day. Is the office open at nighttime? And they said, well, no. I also made a promise that at least one night a week, the offices will be open for people to come in, both offices in Camden County and Gloucester County, for their concerns. If they need to come to the office and speak to someone and get some help, someone will be there. And most likely that person will be me. And that's what the job entails. I understand it. I read the job description. Unfortunately, that job description has gone out the window. It's basically what Governor Murphy wants, what the Democrat agenda is, and we move forward from there. But that's not the way it's going to be. Send me to Trenton. We will make the change that's needed to fix this state.
That's right. And a Republican governor and a Republican state senator and a Republican assemblyman all must assure and guarantee the people of New Jersey that these lockdowns will never, ever be enforced upon again. It was based on bad science. It was based on fear, and it suspended the constitutional rights of the people, unprecedented in our history. And Republicans must assure the people of New Jersey that this will never, ever happen again. Now, let me say this too, Pat, that the Democratic Party believes that when they're in power, nothing else matters. There's no recognition of the minority. They will continue on with their agenda. They believe in what is called the politics and administration, which goes back to the progressive era. Franklin Johnson Goodnow, who was a great influence on Woodrow Wilson, talked about eliminating the separation of powers between the three branches and dictate the will that the people need to have, and then have the administration to follow through with the will. And that's exactly what we've seen with Phil Murphy and the Democrats running the state. And this is why the Democrats must be defeated, because they don't recognize, they don't want any help from the Republicans at all. They say, as you've heard before, Pac, if you want to govern, then win elections, is what was said for many, many years, and what the Democrats, their mentality today. And this is why the people of New Jersey and the independents who will decide these elections, independents, if you're an independent, you believe in your own independence, as we've seen in the first few remarks of our Constitution, that the people are by nature free and independent. If you are an independent, you need to vote for the Republicans, because they are going to support and defend your constitutional rights to independency. It's been taken away with the Democrats in New Jersey for too long.
JR, you're spot on with that. And also that you mentioned about that it's the Democrats do not reach across the aisle at all. They don't want the Republicans involved in anything. And I'm going to tell you exactly what happened this week, less than 3 miles from my house, where all the tornadoes hit and all the damage was. Governor Murphy, along with the Senate president and some other Democrat politicians, it was in Congressman Van Drew's district, did not invite him to tour the damage with the governor. No. They invited the CD1 Congressman Norcross. And the the amazing part about it is, one of the reporters said, well, why is Congressman Norcross there? And they said, oh, well, he's from the other district, but he cares about this district. Well, Congressman Van Drew was already in the district touring other damage because he was not invited. So you want to talk about party politics. You want to talk about the Democrats just wanting control. They don't want to even acknowledge that Congressman Van Drew was in the district. The governor's there. This was not party politics. This was to help the people that their homes were destroyed by a tornado. And it was still a photo op and straight political agendas. I said, when they told me the governor's coming down to Gloucester County to tour the damage, I said it's going to be a photo op and he's going to blame climate change. And that's exactly what he did. He took pictures. He waited to got in front of the worst house, took pictures there, had the news conference there, did not have one elected Republican with him. And he blamed climate change. These people don't want to hear about climate change. They want to hear about what is the state going to do to help them get their lives back. And it was sad. While Congressman Van Drew was in a different part of the district, actually helping. He was actually helping. He was fielding people's concerns that day. He told them to call their office. He got things done for them that they needed to get done. He's already had information about FEMA out there. He was in contact with that office. He was already in contact with he needed to be in Washington, D.C. to get the help that we needed to the district. Not a photo op. The only photos you saw out there were actually taken by residents of the areas that were damaged, and they were put out there on social media. And the congressman didn't bring a news crew with them, a photo, no photo journalists, no newspapers with them. He did the right thing for the district, and it's a shame that the Democrats, even in this tragedy, only were pushing a political agenda. Very, very sad. It's time for them to go. It's give us Republicans a chance to lead. We can govern. We can lead. We lead with facts, not emotion. We lead with what is best for the state, not social and political agendas.
That's right. And one of the things that you're going to have to reinitiate when you get into the assembly, the state assembly, Pac, is the idea of deliberation, of reasoned deliberation. You should be able to get up and speak. Everything is very oriented towards the leadership, what the leader of the assembly, even on the Republican side. And it takes away from the individual participation of each one of the assemblymen or each one of the state senators, who should always be able and free to speak and not have to be given the permission by the Senate president or by the assembly leader. We need to restore deliberation so that everyone is using common sense. And as Republicans, we will welcome common sense and good legislation suggestions from the Democrats, whereas they completely write off from the very beginning any suggestion of any kind of Republican legislation, because they believe in power and they want that power, and they think if they get elected, it's a one-party rule. Whereas we know that our founders wanted deliberation amongst the body to come up with the very best legislation, the very best ideas for the good of those they represent. The Democratic Party only represent those who vote for them. They only vote for the special interests and the sectarian interest groups that make up and fund the Democratic Party. Whereas we as Republicans, we want to include everyone. Liberty to all is our motto, not just the teachers union, not just the IBEW, not just this particular group of people or that particular group. We look to represent all, and I know that is an aspiration of you to bring back that true representation of all the people of LD4 and bring back deliberation and debate in the assembly to come up with the very best ideas and legislation.
JR, you hit it on, right out of the park again on that one. And now I'm going to read Article 1 again, which is great. Paragraph 2. Government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit of the people. And they have the right at all times to alter and reform the same. How is Trenton benefiting us? What is the governor doing? What is the Democrat-controlled state house for 30 years doing to benefit us, the citizens and residents of New Jersey? They're not making it better. That is for sure. That's for sure. And you go back to common sense. It's actually, here's one of my campaign pieces. That is my campaign slogan: common sense representation for LD4. It's time to put common sense back in. If Trenton cannot provide simple services as motor vehicle commission, they can't. There's still a backlog there. You can't register your car in the state of New Jersey. You can't get a title for a car. New drivers can't get their driver's license. If the Democrat-run state house cannot provide the basic services of government for protection and security and benefit of the people, it's time to change that. And the people can change that. Every seat is up for election on November 2nd. It's time for the change. It's time to fix the state. Vote the long-term Democrats out of office. Give us Republicans a chance. I'll say it a million times. Give us a chance. And if we can't govern and we can't lead, you have an opportunity in 2 years to vote the assembly members out. And in 4 years, you have an opportunity to vote the state Senate candidates out. I'll guarantee you, you will like what you see. We are committed to running the state correctly. Jack is committed to doing it. I am committed to doing the best that I can possibly do for LD4 residents. It's time for the change. It's time to fix the state.
That's right. And Steve, what I want to do, I want to touch upon probably the most hot button issue for New Jersey taxpayers, of course, is our property tax. And of course, you being an excellent mechanic, as a conservative, we look back to where did the problem start? Where is the issue coming from? We go right back to the very beginning. And what we have to do, and I want to put up this share screen here for a moment, and that is we have to go back to the Abbott decision that was made in learning why we pay so much in property taxes. And you'll be equipped with this knowledge. The New Jersey Supreme Court back in 1973 in Robinson v. Cahill found that this system, which is The local districts, let's give a little bit of historical background. The local districts used to be in charge of their education, which is precisely where it needs to go back to. And I know that you're going to promote that in LD4. The decision should be made to school boards, to parents, teachers working with the school boards, not the NJEA, but having the people who have the children in the schools making the decisions. So in considering why we pay so much money in property taxes, one time the local districts developed annual budgets that paid for the local education through property taxes. The New Jersey Supreme Court in Robinson v. Cahill in 1973 found that this system violated the state constitution guarantee of access to a thorough and efficient, quote unquote, public education system. The New Jersey Constitution, Article 8, Taxation of Finance, Section 4, Paragraph 1 said that the legislature shall provide for the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of free public schools for the instruction of all children in the state. In response, the New Jersey legislature in 1976 created the state's first income tax, the first income tax, to increase spending on poor districts. 1981, New Jersey Education Law Center sued, and this was a very, very social justice minded law firm, and they sued in Abbott v. Burke, and saying that the New Jersey school finance system deprived students in low-income districts and contributed to significant differences in the suitability of education offered in poor districts compared to wealthy districts. So here we have this dialectic that's being created by the social justice warriors and the Democrats between those who have and those who have not. And this is what it resulted in the Abbott school funding decision. Now, the New Jersey Supreme Court found the system discriminatory and unconstitutional and ordered that the state implement a program to guarantee that funding in the Abbott districts would be compatible to that of the which would be comparable to that of the wealthier districts. And of course, now you're talking about redistributing from one district to another when the districts always took care of themselves, which is where it should be. It should be done by in-house by local people. Now, the New Jersey school finance litigation represents the nation's longest running effort to address inequities in education opportunity through the courts. From 1973, when the state court ruled the state's funding system unconstitutional, through 2017, when a court found that the legislator's latest remedy inadequate, plaintiffs have gone to the court more than 20 times to seek relief. I believe, Steve, it's either 24 or 25 different rulings have been made. Now, the 1985 Abbott school funding decision by the New Jersey Supreme Court benefits 31 out of the 566 school districts in the state. These districts have been monies bonded by the School Development Authority, SDA, made up of some 300 employees, which spends about $500 million a year on administrative expenses alone. So in attempting, Steve, to create equity, they actually created more discrimination, more inequality by forcing Trenton as a directive by the Supreme Court and creating legislation that was discriminatory in nature. And that is why, that is the impetus behind the Abbott school funding formula. It is founded on discrimination. And this is why Republicans need to bring back equity to everyone, not just those in the poor school districts.
So true. We keep throwing money and money and money at these school districts and nothing changes. So why do we do it? Jack has a plan to change the way that we fund our schools. We are not going to leave any child behind. And actually the education will be better for our children. Charter schools, money follows the students, choices. Why is government telling our parents where we can send our kids to school? It's not fair for the parents of these children in these failing schools. Even though they get all the money in the world and they're continue to fail, those parents should have the option to remove those children from those failing school districts and send. The money should follow the child. We can do this. Why does it cost us so much money to educate our kids here in New Jersey? Sometimes double than other states, with poorer with results that are less. The children come out, they cannot read, write, they're behind in history, they're behind in everything, but we spend the most money per student. It has to end. And for some reason, the teachers union has such a hold on Trenton, and especially with Governor Murphy, I think they just gave him another $4 million for his reelection bid. It has to stop. The teachers are not the problem. It's the union leadership. It's sad when I'm out there on social media, or I know teachers that teach in some of these poor districts. Even though they get all the money, they're always saying, "Hey, I'm doing a GoFundMe to buy the kids backpacks and school supplies." And I'm like, "But why we spend all these money on the students? Why aren't there supplies in the classroom?" And they go, "That's a great question, Steve. Hopefully you'll get to Trenton and you can answer that question for me." The corruption has to end. We have to audit every dollar that we're spending on our schools and find out, is this money being spent correctly? As a small business owner, I do it every day of the week. In my business, I'm in the auto repair business. You bring your car into me, you need a part for your car. I shop the best price and quality for that part. We should be doing that for our children. What is the best price and quality? It doesn't mean price always isn't the main thing. Cheapest always isn't the better, but we can do better. We spend way too much money educating our students, and they're failing. They're failing. It should not be like this.
And what's amazing, Steve, is that the creation of the income tax was supposed to support this new funding of public schools, and the income tax didn't work. It wasn't enough.
Right.
It was created for that very purpose. So then the creation of the property tax and the rise in property taxes had to help, because so much money is spent on education. I know that I pay 75% of my local taxes go to education in our township. Now, not only is there too much money spent, the curriculums are now being orchestrated from Trenton on what should be taught, as opposed to the parents and those on the local school boards directing what they want their children to learn, so that they're able to be educated, so that they're able to be independent and self-sufficient. Whereas the curriculum that's proposed by the Democrats and progressives is essentially teaching the child to be dependent on government. And this is why it's so important for the people to be running for their school boards, to be dictating that they want their children to learn classical education, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic, the true description and representation of history, and to learn something about morality and treating your fellow man as you would want him to treat you. And this has been eliminated from Trenton. And of course, we know that there are agendas involved, social justice agendas, as well as agendas that are contrary to the laws of nature and nature's God. And this is why it's so important for the people to realize they have to get on the school boards. The parents have to get on the school boards. And you make an outstanding point back that the parents need to be given the right to choose where their children are going to school. School choice is essential in reestablishing justice. Now, Phil Murphy and the Democrats like to talk about justice, Pac, but the Republican Party, we will restore real justice by treating everyone with equal protection and doing what is right. And you said common sense, right? Common sense is just another way of saying the laws of nature, and nature's God.
So true. When we also talk about the investment in our children, what happens with our system of education here in New Jersey is we want to expand it now into college. Well, here's some things that are a huge problem in our state. So our college students, our college graduates, the best of the best out of those classes that come out of our New Jersey colleges do not stay in the state. We lose 78% of them. So we've made the investment in our children, which is fine. I'm all for that. We should be. But our return on our investment is so bad because the children that are getting out, or now the young adults that are getting out of a college, cannot start a life in New Jersey because it's so expensive. So we've lost the best of our best students. We're spending so much money to educate them. And if they would stay in the state, and they're high wage earners, the best of the best do get great jobs. But they say, why should I live in New Jersey when I can work in Philadelphia? Or even if I do work in New Jersey, here in South Jersey, I can live in Philadelphia at half the cost of New Jersey. I can buy a home, average price home, the same Philadelphia and New Jersey, but the taxes are almost a third. And they said, I can't afford my student loans and the taxes in New Jersey. So we lose those kids. So the money we spent going through, kindergarten through 12th, and now that we're helping also subsidize them for college. And then if they further their degree, they go 2 years or go another 4 years into their degree, we lose them. We're not retaining them. So the return on our investment as the taxpayers, as the property taxpayers, is so poor, it's costing us more and more and more because these kids or young adults are not paying back into the system that they benefited from. They didn't think it out. The Democrats never do that. Not to mention the millions and millions and millions of our money, our property taxes, that they're paying for illegals to go to school in our, state. Now, listen, if someone is in the state illegally, a child, of course we want to get them to have an education. But I'm talking about the millions we're spending for, college for them. They get a free college education. It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand we can't have children in our states not being educated. Yes, that has to happen. We do have the schools, so send them to our schools. But it's unfair to the property taxpayers that illegals their higher education is being paid by us while we scrape and suffer and go into debt to send our children to college. It's just not fair. That has to end. The Republicans need to take control of the state and fix these social programs that are putting us in debt, so far in debt that we can never, ever, ever pay it back. It has to change.
That's right. And what you're describing too are the abrogation of the rules of naturalization. There's approximately 500,000, between 500,000 and 1 million illegal aliens in the state of New Jersey. Phil Murphy, with his social justice agenda, wants to give them money, doesn't recognize the federal law of the rules of naturalization in this way. And I've said this before, I've compared him to a Confederate, because that's exactly what he is. Of course, the Democrats were Confederates. They abrogate federal law. The rules of naturalization, PAC, are created to protect existing American citizens. And it is an affront. It is an insult to all those who've done everything they were supposed to do in becoming a citizen and fulfilling the requirements of citizenship properly. And in that way, they truly understand what the American ideal and our American creed of liberty to all is all about. Whereas he wants to give citizenship, driver's license, money, legal representation, healthcare to people who are not American citizens. And this is an abrogation of the rule of law and simple common sense, as you made mention before. And it is against the laws of nature and nature's God. And this is what we have to, as Republicans, we have to talk about. The common sense legislation protecting existing American citizens. If you're going to come to the state properly and correctly, then by all means, we support that. And we want you to be to enjoy the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But to reward illegal aliens with illegal immigration and then paying them and subsidizing them is purely political expedience, back. It's purely the Democrats wanting to hold on to power and create a one-party system and eliminate the Republican Party and have these people dependent upon them and their policies, which keep them in slave labor. Their policies keep them in economic conditions that are the equivalent of poverty. And they have the most to gain by promising these people and keeping them from being able to lift up themselves, which is what Republican policies will do. And this is why it's so important that we talk to those who are, who may be in a lower economic bracket. And in the urban areas, especially, tell them Republican Party principles will set you free. You don't need to believe in the injustice of the policies of the Democratic Party.
Again, you are spot on with that. With all the urban areas and the problems that we've had for decades, there should have been one generation that needed government assistance. After that, that second generation should have been fine in this country. But the policies do keep them down. It makes no sense to when President Trump cut the corporate tax and then said, with that corporate tax cut, we are going to spend money developing in the urban areas. We're going to put business empowerment zones where we're going to bring companies and give them tax breaks and give them incentive to move into these areas to give people opportunity to earn their own money. And it worked, and it worked well. Republican policies worked well. Crime went down.
Yes.
People had a sense of purpose. The problem is it's a revolving door. What happens is, unfortunately, these areas are drug. There's a lot of drug problems in these areas. Now, if the Democrats went after the drug dealers as bad as they're going after the people that are not wearing masks or getting vaccinated, we would have solved the drug problem in an hour and a half. Remove the drug problems from the corners, lock up these criminals and throw away the key. They refuse to do that. Also, if there's availability for people to make money or go into a life of crime and drugs where young teens are getting killed on the streets every day from gun violence, illegal gun violence, there's a problem. Why do they want this? Why do they not fight this? Why do they always say the Republican policies is only for the rich people? Well, let me clue you in a little bit. I'm far from rich. I work very, very hard for what I've earned. I live a modest lifestyle. And it was all through my work. And people really do, they'd rather work for a living than take that life of crime. But if there's no choice in that neighborhood, they have no other way to do than to earn and do what they do and fall into the same decades of poverty and crime. It just doesn't work. Give us Republicans a chance to bring up these neighborhoods. How much money have we spent in Camden? And where did that money go? We brought certain companies into that with political connections. It didn't provide any new jobs for the people in Camden. That was wrong. We should have put manufacturing plants there and got people involved in their communities. And unfortunately, they didn't. That money went to people in the state that are politically connected. We gave money to the Philadelphia 76ers to open up a practice facility that netted about 14 new jobs in the state of New Jersey, and we millions. It has to end. We need real leadership. We need an MBA CPA at the top and a governor, not a Wall Street executive that has only made money for his clients with money. We need a Main Street guy, not a Wall Street guy. We need guys like me, small business, understand the communities, understand the needs of what's actually happening every single day, understand the needs of the parents. I have a high school child. Our friends all have young children in schools. We get it. We get it. It's time to put people like ourselves in the position of power so that we are represented correctly.
Outstanding, Pac. And as we wind down, I told you early today in a text that I have some quotes for you. And I want you to use these quotes to propel you on to victory. And I also want other Republicans to listen and incorporate these quotes, these ideas in your candidacies. And let me say, quote, "It is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men, rather, in all ages who mean to govern well, but they still mean to govern. They promise to be kind masters, but they mean to be masters. They think that there need to be but little restraint upon themselves. The love of power may sink too deep into their own hearts. Hold on, my friends, to the Constitution and to the Republic for which it stands. Miracles do not cluster, and what has happened once in 6,000 years, that's the creation of America, may never happen again. Hold on to the Constitution, for if the American Constitution should fall, there will be anarchy throughout the world, unquote. And that was spoken by the great Daniel Webster, the great Massachusetts senator, the great Whig, the man who argued more Supreme Court cases before the court than any man ever. And what a tremendous man he was, and a tremendous representative. And then, as we just mentioned for a moment, Pac, it's all about guarding against good intentions. And even though you're going to have rulers, you can have kind rulers, they're still going to rule. You're going to have masters. They may be kind masters, but they're still going to be masters. And this is exactly the facade that Phil Murphy and the Democrats hide behind. Now, let me just share with you this. George Washington, in his famous farewell address in 1796, upon which the anniversary is coming up very soon, he said, quote, "Disorders and miseries gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual who turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty." Unquote. That was our great first president, the father of our country, George Washington. And when I read that, Pac, I could not help of thinking of one Phil Murphy.
So true. So true. Well, I will say this, though. Unlike Phil Murphy, the Bill of Rights will not be above my pay grade when I'm a state senator. That the Bill of Rights will actually guide me through, because I must remember the people have the rights, not the government. And we've lost sight of that. We started with that quote. We've lost sight of that. Unfortunately, the people of New Jersey have lost sight of that because we've been beaten down so much. It's time to control. We can do this. The Republicans are for the rights of the people. We want people to prosper. That is the first thing. Government is supposed to provide for the prosperity of the people. Is Governor Murphy helping us by shutting us down and us down, or our state representative helping us by not questioning him? So we're going to go back to that. The Bill of Rights will be a document that guides me while I am in Trenton, and this state constitution, I will know it from front to back there, because this is my description. This is my work manual. I have them in my job, how I make a living. But when I'm representing the people, this document is what I go back to. And if I'm not sure about this document, I don't understand something, you are the person that I'm going to go to and say, JR, what does this mean? How is this supposed to be represented for the people? We should lean on our experts like yourself. We should not look to government for the answer. We should look to ourselves and our communities to the answer. Trenton needs to be fixed. They're not going to fix us. That's for sure.
Well, Pac, I can't tell you how enthused I am with your candidacy, and you're already knowledgeable of the Constitution, probably more than many who are already holding the office in Trenton, and we're so proud of you. And there's no question that it would be impossible not to identify you as a constitutional Republican, because you're looking to the Constitution to protect our powers. Now, as we wind down, tell the people, and I'm imploring the people of LD4 to help Pac get elected. He needs people to make phone calls. He needs people to send out literature. He needs people to do door knocking. He needs people to show up at the headquarters there. He needs people talking to their family and their friends and talking about the need to restore the Constitution, and representatives who revere and will adhere to the Constitution like PAC. He needs all these things. So I'm imploring the people, get behind PAC and get him elected in Trenton. Where can they reach you? Where can they find out? I'll be putting links in this video to get to your website, but talk to people, Steve, how much you need them to help you get elected.
So I do need the help to get elected. I need the people to get involved. They can, it's not, I don't want to make it a full-time job for anyone, but if you want to volunteer for the campaign, it's very easy to do. I'm giving out my personal cell phone number. If I'm going to represent you, you better know how to get in touch with me. It's 856-905-4457. You can text me and ask me any questions that you like, or if you want to get involved, I can tell you how to get involved in my campaign. If you want to know more about me, you want to donate to my campaign, find out more about my platform, what I stand for, my bio, where I came from, it's www.steve4, that's the number 4, njsenate.com. I'm very, very active on social media. On my Facebook page, it has all my videos. It's easier for me to speak to the people than to try to write it all down. And sometimes it's a lot to read. So yes. I've been doing those as JR, that's what you do in the videos. And it really does provide a more personal touch so people can see, yes, hey, it's just not writing something. He's really passionate about it. So go to my Facebook, which is Steve4, the number 4 again, NJ Senate, or look up Steve Pakradooni. It'll take you to all the links on my social media. And please get involved. I can really use some help, yes, making some phone calls. You know, the people of LD4, if you turn out and vote, if you feel as passionate as I do about saving the state, living in the great state of New Jersey. I moved here. I said, this is where I want to live. This is great. We got beaches, we got mountains, we got, great education. We have businesses and restaurants and everything anybody would want to have in their state. I'm not leaving. I'm fighting. That's how I got involved. I was going to leave. I was going to say, I had enough of this. I'm moving. I said, nope, I'm not going to move. I'm going to challenge the people in Trenton. I'm going to take their seats because of their incompetence, and I'm going to save and fix my state of New Jersey, which I love.
And incidentally, you want to tune in on Sundays. Steve has Sundays with Steve, where he gives an excellent presentation for a few minutes. Share this information. We need to see more likes, more shares in what Steve is putting out there. There's a lot of people in LD4, and there needs to be a lot more people supporting Steve, because he is going to properly represent you for the first time, probably in all of your lifetimes. Steve, thank you so much for coming on. I really look forward to seeing you soon and shaking your hand. And as we leave the program, Steve, I want to remind the people that in initially talking about the constitutional republic that our founders created, Abraham Lincoln said, quote, "All this is not the result of an accident. It has a philosophical cause. Without the Constitution and the Union, we could not have attained the result. But even these are not the primary cause of our great prosperity. There is something back of these, entwining itself more closely about the human heart. That something is the principle of liberty to all, the principle that clears the path for all, gives hope to all, and by consequence, enterprise and industry to all." That is our Republican motto. That will restore the Republican Party as the party of the Constitution and properly representing the people, not only of New Jersey, but throughout the nation. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, JR. I appreciate all your help and support. And thank you for a great conversation.
Absolutely. We'll do it again, and keep up the hard work. And to the people, please share this video. Let's get support up there in LD4 and get Steve Pakradooni, the man known as Pac, in Trenton. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, JR.
Take care.